With that theme music, it means it must be time for Talk of the Bay, right here on K-Squid 90.7 FM, your community radio station for the Monterey Bay. And today on the program, we're going to be talking about preventing hate and bigotry in our communities in the first half of the program. In the second half of the program, we'll be talking about how to prevent the exposure to the farm workers and the children and the people living here around the fields of the Monterey Bay of pesticides that have been banned in many other places, but not here. Find out what groups are doing to try to get rid of some of the worst actors in the pesticide field. We'll be talking with pesticide reform folks about recent activity trying to pass through some of these very harmful chemicals into our fields. That comes up in the second half of the program. Stay tuned for all of that great stuff right ahead on K-Squid. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman. And my guest today in the first half of the program is Cliff. He's here with me right on Talk of the Bay. Welcome, Cliff Friedlander, right? That's your last name.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks. And
Cliff is part of an effort in Santa Cruz County, which is United Against Hate Week. How long has that been going on?
The event has been going on for a number of years. In Santa Cruz, there's a group that's been formed called SCUSIC, Santa Cruz County United for Safe and Inclusive Communities.
What a mouthful.
Which is a mouthful. And basically, it's a group of people who have gotten together that want to raise awareness about issues around hate and hate crimes and intimidation in our county.
So there have been hate crimes and intimidations in our county, for sure. What are some of the ones that inspired you to be part of this effort, that you read about or that you heard about, that made you concerned about the safety of folks in our community?
Well, unfortunately, there are many that have arisen, and certainly the defacement of the Black Lives Matter mural was one. That was our organization had already been formed before then. But the way the group was actually founded was a woman named Marcelle DuPraw was the aunt of a victim of a hate murder in Portland, Oregon that happened in 2017. And her nephew was on a train in Portland and witnessed two women of color, one with a hijab, being harassed by a young man. Three guys on that train got up to assist and helped the women. The man turned around with a knife and stabbed and killed two of them. One was Marcy's nephew. And out of sort of the grief of experiencing that event, she decided to do something positive in her nephew's name and form this group, SCUSIC. And I heard her give a talk about this, and it inspired me to want to do something.
So are there chapters all over the country now?
Well, the United Against Hate, that is a national event. And yes, so that
so
is
there's
true.
chapters of this organization, and their main goal is to do what?
The main goal is to bring awareness to the issues that are already here, and in some ways, if it's possible, to prevent the kind of crimes or extreme events that we're seeing more and more of throughout the country. So it's both awareness, education, and also as a clearinghouse, or even as a source of information for what do you do? I mean, what do you do when you witness something like that? And that's one of the things that we've done, is that we've partnered with a group that's now on the East Coast called Right to Be. They used to be called Hollaback, and they have free online bystander trainings where you can register, and they will teach you the skills to both identify if you see or witness a hate crime, and then two, how to respond in a way that can protect yourself, where you can remain safe, and at the same time be effective. And
And your story about DuPraw's nephew being stabbed with another person killed on a train for standing up kind of points out the need to understand what you're getting into when you do stand up for someone.
Yes.
That's the bystander training. Any tips that you learned being part of this project about how you do that?
Well, part of it is to try and assess the level of danger of the situation, and two, what your comfort level is in terms of what's involved, and it could be as simple as doing something to distract the person who is harassing another person. It could be making a phone call to someone that you're witnessing something that you need help. There are a number of strategies that are taught in this workshop, and again, I think it's a very positive, powerful, sort of empowering thing to be able to have some skills under your belt.
For sure, especially when you're told a story like that, it definitely points to the need for being aware of what you're getting into. I would be curious what else this project does to address the bigger problem of white supremacy, which seems to be creeping into our politics, into, everyday people's minds. What's the effective pushback to people getting recruited by these groups who claim, they're being replaced by black and brown people, and white people are endangered? How do you teach about, for people who might be young enough to be impressionable, to understand that that's probably not a great path to go down?
I can't say that I have answers to that. Happily, both the state, at the state level and at the local level in our schools, the County Office of Education is fully on board with the work that we're doing, and have tried to institute as part of this week. This is United Against Hate Week from Sunday to Sunday, and there are events that are happening within the elementary schools, within the high schools, to again bring awareness to this issue and begin to have some kind of curriculum. And on the state level, there was a meeting several weeks ago that was really encouraging in terms of how just in terms of how on board the state is, and the State Attorney General Rob Bonfa gave a wonderful talk and introduced a whole number of people and highlighted some of the resources that are available on the state level to both communities and to nonprofit organizations. So the state is definitely behind this effort to try and turn this around.
It's good to know. It seems to be something that would have to happen in two directions for the adults that are already exhibiting, behaviors that show that they've been recruited or their minds are in that direction. There are laws about behaviors, but there aren't laws about the gray areas, are there? Like if someone's exhibiting nasty signs, but it's on their private property, the free speech laws kind of protect that, don't they, a little bit?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we've learned even in this year of trying to engage, is that there really is a difference between something that's an illegal or against the law activity and something that's not. And I think the area where it's not, and you're talking about harassment and intimidation and things that are terrible to have to live with, that are all too common in our community. And it's one of the things that's been an eye-opening thing to me, is that, knowing that we live in a, quote, progressive community, and then having to actually come to terms with that there are many issues that happen, and people of color and people of Asian descent feel often that they're targeted and often that they're harassed. And this is something that I think that is harder to deal with because you can't call the cops. It's not their job, and two, it's not. There's nothing on that level to be done about it, and it seems that the educational component is what's clearly missing and needs to be encouraged from a very young age.
It's really cultural shift, I think, you're talking about to make public harassment unacceptable socially so that no one would do it in public. I had a very interesting debate in my class about this when it came to catcalling, because that's a really, horribly intimidating thing for young women to be happening to them wherever they go. And it's so common, they've almost gotten used to it. But I said, what do you think about this proposal to fine people for catcalling? And all the women were in favor of it and none of the guys. It was very interesting, this idea, it's free speech, but it's public harassment if you're doing it on the basis of someone's gender or the color of their skin. And it really does, it's about what happens in public spaces. So, for example, if you catcalled someone at work, you'd probably be fired or reprimanded for harassment. Because in a private company, there's laws about that. But on the street, in the public spaces, there aren't at all, right? So that's an interest, right? So you can say whatever you want. So it almost has to be publicly embarrassing to do something like that. It's unacceptable culturally.
Sure.
And how do you turn that corner? That's a good question. If you just joined me, this is Talk of the Bay. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman. I'm speaking with Cliff Friedlander. We're going to take a teeny tiny break, and we'll come right back and continue talking about United Against Hate Week here in Santa Cruz County and all the things you can do to participate. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
KSQD's fall online auction is live at ksqd.org. Bid now on fabulous items to support K-Squid's Signal expansion campaign. Help us triple our audience as we prepare to purchase 2 new radio licenses and reach the whole Monterey Bay area. Looking for special gifts this season? Bid now on a week's stay in Galway, Ireland, courtesy of Enda Brennan. 5 nights in a gorgeous ocean view 3-bedroom home in Carmel, courtesy of Callie Shivery and Susan Kubica. A 4-hour sail on the Monterey Bay, thanks to Ryan Aldhouse. A wine club membership at Pelican Ranch Winery, thanks to Phil Cruz. Or maybe you'd like to bid on a signed copy of Jill Cronson's first album, thanks to Ukulele Dick. Just go to ksqd.org and click on the auction link. Be a squid and make your bid.
And we just added items today. A beautiful landscape painting called Big Sur Sky by Heidi Hibble and Erica Perloff's The Color of Water. So if you want to see any of these items and support your Squid radio station's expansion campaign so we can reach the whole Monterey Bay, go online at ksqd.org and click on the auction graphic and look at all the great things, some of which only have one bid. So get your bid in early. It closes Saturday night at 9. So you want to get in your bid now so you can be the person to share that wonderful Carmel bungalow with your friends on a 5-night spree. Going back to the conversation, we've been talking with Cliff Friedlander about Santa Cruz County United Against Hate Week, and we're going to tell you about some of the events, or he is actually, that you can attend to help raise your awareness about hate crimes and what to do about them, hate speech and hate activities, and lowering the temperature between us all so that we can get along, which is a good goal, don't you say?
Yes, thanks. So I'm going to work backwards here. The last event that we're going to be promoting or producing is a film screening that's happening Sunday night of a film called Repairing the World, Stories of the Tree of Life. And that's going to be screened on Sunday evening, November 20th, at 7 o'clock at the 418 Project. And that used to be the Riverfront Theater in Santa Cruz. The event is free. The screening is free. The filmmaker, Patrice O'Neill, will be present, and there will be some discussion prior to the film as well. And Mayor Sonia Bruner will be there, and Rabbi Paula Marcus from Temple Bethel will be there. And the film is basically about the community response of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to a horrific hate crime that occurred there a few years ago, where a number of people in a Jewish temple were murdered. In part, they were targeted because they were supportive of immigrants coming into this country, and that was in part why they were targeted. But the sort of the takeaway of the film that's quite moving is how the community of Pittsburgh came together to really rally to decide that this was not okay, that as a community they wanted to do something about this together. And it's a very moving story to witness this. And for us, I feel like it's a tremendous opportunity in a place like Santa Cruz where we haven't experienced this kind of incident yet. And we have an opportunity to act before this happens. And this film in some ways offers tools towards showing a pathway forward around that.
You were saying that many of the groups, like police and church groups and synagogues, all banded together. Everybody was on the same page.
Yes.
That's a crucial part, because if you ask for help and people ignore you or think you're exaggerating and don't take it seriously, it's kind of giving a pass to the haters, right? I mean, it's...
Yes. And I think that for me personally, that one of the things that's been really, it's been really inspiring to work with this group. And I've done political work my whole adult life. This is a pretty unique group of people that we've been working with, and it really represents. We're partnering with the public library. We're partnering with different political people, the mayor of Santa Cruz, mayor of Scotts Valley, with the sheriff's department and the police department, and schools as well. And it's a very powerful mix. And again, I think that people really understand that there's something that needs to be done, and it's important for us to work together around this.
There's something happening tonight, right at 6. That's why you have to go in 10 minutes.
Indeed.
Tell us about the panel discussion.
So there's a youth panel discussion, and it's basically perspectives and needs for well-being of our youth. And it's going to be happening at 6 o'clock at the Capitola Branch Library, which is on Wharf Road. And that event, you can go and be there in person, or if you go to the library website, there's a link to a Zoom of that meeting as well. And
do you have to be a youth to participate?
No, actually. And in fact, it was one of the things that was actually interesting about organizing that particular event is that we had a really hard time coming up with young people. We had actually hoped to get a total panel of high school students. We couldn't get literally a single high school student to be part of our panel. The panel is going to be a UCSC student who is also a member of interning with NAACP. We have a recent high school graduate of SLV High, and then we have Derek Tim, who is the council member of Scotts Valley, former mayor, who will moderate, and Sylvia Morales, who is the head of the Resource Center for Nonviolence, and that will be the panel. And
so why do you think it was hard to get high school students to participate? They're certainly in the thick of what happens with bullying on the playground or on the street outside of school. Why do you think they declined?
I am not sure. And we really had an extensive effort kind of reaching out, and not just North County, South County as well, to different organizations. And maybe people are busy. Maybe it's still sort of post or whatever COVID issue. I'm not sure. Or maybe it's just that it's a scary thing to talk about some of this stuff. And
the word hate is a strong word.
Yes.
It's a strong word, and it connotates all kinds of things. You know, it sounds intense, and maybe there's a lot of aversion to talking about very touchy issues right now. Maybe because they're living some of it too. You know?
Could Could be.
But we can only speculate. We'll have to get some youth to text us and tell us why you think people didn't sign up for a panel trying to push back against hate crimes and hate speech in Santa Cruz, given that there's been so many targets. I wanted to bring up a couple of them that happened up at UC Santa Cruz, one of which just shocked me. There was a Mexican family who dropped off their child for the first time, going to college. Very exciting day, most full of joy and also sadness when you say goodbye to your young person. And as they were going back to their car, they found a Mexican flag that had been burned, and the ashes of which were placed next to their car. And that was, you could call that a hate crime. It certainly had a very strong message. There's been other instances of swastikas on bathroom stalls and a noose that was found on a tree down at the base of campus, which for people historically seeing that, it connotes the Deep South during the Jim Crow era. So these are disturbing patterns, and that's only a few of the examples that have happened up there. And I think students want to feel safe. Going to college, you don't expect to encounter, especially at a place like UC Santa Cruz, that kind of response.
Sure. Well, and you can look at Santa Cruz High School and the two incidents that they had in the last couple of weeks where the entire school, in fact, the entire school, Santa Cruz City schools were locked down in response to the call about a active shooter at Santa Cruz High. And that was a pretty traumatic event for not only the students, but for obviously the parents of those students who were trying to cope with what was going on, but as a community as well, because there were, I don't know, 150 police descended the area closed off, and people not knowing what's going on, helicopters. And I think an event like that happens, and we're again very fortunate that no one was hurt, and thankfully our police responded in a responsible, timely way. But there are residuals to that these kids still have to go to school. These parents are still sending their kids to school and going, I hope it's going to be okay. I hope nothing happens. And we deserve to provide a safe haven for our students, especially young people, to be able to learn.
Yeah, it's and parents want to feel like they can let their kids go to school and not think about such things. So it really is a timely topic. I think we're concluding here when we're talking about all these examples and the need for a community dialogue before something really does happen. That was a drill. It was a pretty horrible hoax, and I hope they catch the person who did it, because that's a malicious, awful thing to do. But at the same time, there are these other incidents that are happening that make people feel uneasy. So with that, what are some of the other things happening around, maybe that might be inspired by this 1 week that could carry on the rest of the year, do you think?
There is one other event that's happening, and that's actually Saturday at 11. And there's a local group in town that's part of our organization as well. It's called Surge, which is showing up for racial justice. And they're having what they're calling a calling in workshop, where it's a Zoom conversation, and it's basically working on having difficult conversations about racism and white supremacy. And the notion is that as we approach the holidays, and often in families there's not unified agreement on how people look at these subjects, and that the group Surge is basically offering ways of helping people have those difficult conversations that are often easier to avoid than not.
It's not an easy topic, but a lot of it starts early with parents, doesn't it? If you poison your children with hatred, then that might be all they would know, to quote singer-songwriter Nancy Griffith, that you want to teach people to be curious about other cultures and get to know people that are not like them and learn from each other all the beauty in the many cultures that are here, both in Santa Cruz County and elsewhere around the country. When I look around my students, they're from every possible country you can imagine, and they're living here too. They communicate and they go around our community and they go to places. They're from everywhere from Kashmir to Bangladesh to Vietnam. They're first generation immigrants. A lot of them just came here a couple years ago. And so I hope they have a good experience living in our community during the 4 years they're here, both up on campus and as they're cruising around the shops and cafes of Santa Cruz. So I think we could work hard, and I think you're challenging us to work harder to make this a welcoming, loving place that doesn't tolerate that garbage that
Thanks.
we've been talking about.
And I just want to mention that if you want more information about any of these events, if you just go to the Santa Cruz Public Library website, it's all listed there, and there are links to all the events that I just mentioned, as well as other information. I would encourage you to get involved. Yes.
You want to give a phone number also or email?
Yes, for our group, for SCUSIC, the email would be sylvia@rcnv.org.
Great. And that's Santa Cruz County United Against Hate, if I got the acronym right.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Cliff Friedlander. Great to meet you. Thank you for stopping by.
Same. Thanks for having me.
Have a good evening. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman, and coming up next, we'll be talking pesticides with an expert in the field of pesticide reform. Stay tuned. This is K-Squid, KSQD, Santa Cruz.
KSQ